Good morning, everyone, and welcome aboard the Yellow Thunder. Today we're going to be embarking on a 2-hour, 10-mile round trip through the scenic Upper Dells of the Wisconsin River. Along the way, we will be making 2 pit stops, the first being at the Witch's Gulch, and the second at the world's famous Stand Rock. Now, before we get too far on the tour today, bottom deck, how are you guys feeling? Alright, back deck, give me a big thumbs up or a wave. Perfect. Top deck, we can't really hear or see down here, so can we get a little tap tap with your feet? You can do a little bit better than that. There you go, sounds much better. So we aren't complete strangers on the entire tour today. I would like to introduce myself to you guys. My name is Jenna. I'm going to be your tour guide out here on the river today. This is my 3rd season returning here back to Dells Boat Tours. I'm both a tour guide here on the Upper Dells and the Lower Dells as well. I just graduated from Portage High School. Portage is a town about 15 minutes away from here, so I am a local of the area. If you guys do end up having any questions regarding the river, anything around town or anything like that, certainly do not hesitate to ask. If I don't know the answer to your question, pretty good at making stuff up, so I think we should be all set. Next year I'm going to be starting my freshman year at UW-Madison studying psychology, so if you guys have any advice for me, just let me know, and go Badgers. So that's enough for me. I'm going to hand off the mic to your captain on board today. Here's Ben.
Real quick, up in front of the boat, there's a bald eagle circling. I don't know if you guys saw it up there. Flapping his wings, that big old bird. He's going to circle around a couple times for us. You can see its big, beautiful white head, and then its white tail as well. It's kind of hard act to follow, but I'll introduce myself anyways. My name's Ben, not as cool as a bald eagle. I'll be your pilot or captain out here today. A lot of people ask, what's the difference between a pilot and a captain? And the only thing I've been able to figure out so far is one of them starts with a P, and one of them starts with a C. You understand? Not much different. Now, this is my 2nd year working at Dells Boat Tours, actually. I started working here after I graduated high school. I did graduate from Baraboo High School, about 15 miles south of here. I'm also a local. Actually, where I'm from, Baraboo, and where Jenna's from, Portage, we're bitter rivals when it comes to sports and other academic competitions like that. So if anything you should know about our towns, it is Baraboo is better in just about every way. Now, since I graduated high school, I've actually gone down to Indiana, where I've attended university there, and I'm double majoring in mathematical decision science and public relations. That's going very well after the 1st year. However, I'm not obviously down in Indiana right now. I am up here on these big, beautiful blue and white boats, and I hope you guys see why after our tour today. Now, while we're on our tour today, there are a couple small rules and regulations. First of all, there is no smoking on board the Yellow Thunder today. It's for your safety, but also common courtesy to your fellow passengers. We are on a couple gasoline engines, and this boat is meant to float through the water and not fly through the air, so there is no smoking on board today, please. This does include the usage of vapes and e-cigarettes. There will be one designated smoking area at the end of our very first stop, the Witch's Gulch, and we'll point that out to you. Now, along with that, we ask that you, for the most part, please remain seated while we're on our trip today. We're on a moving object. It's on a moving object, and there's moving objects that move past us every now and then, and the Yellow Thunder can rock and sway in the water a little bit. So, we ask that you please remain seated. I understand this is a sightseeing tour. If you guys want to stand up and get a quick look at something or a better picture, that's totally fine. Just please hold on to something and find your way back to your seat. Bottom deck, if that rocking swing makes you guys nauseous, just remember that our windows down here, they're open, right here. See them? Top deck, however, more importantly, if that makes you nauseous, remember that our windows down here, they're open, so be wary of that. Now, the final thing I really have to say is we just ask humbly that you keep your cell phone and personal conversations down to a minimum, just when Jenna or I are on the mic, so people can hear what we have to say out here. There is a lot of cool stuff we're going to be talking about on our tour. There'll be plenty of downtime at our shore landings and on the way back downriver where you can have those conversations. We just politely ask you to keep those to a minimum while we're on the mic. And finally, don't throw anything in the river. We have a very beautiful river out here, and we are able to maintain that with our beautiful garbage cans on the back deck of our boats. Now, speaking of this river, this is the Wisconsin River you're riding on. It's actually the largest state-contained river in the nation. It's over 430 miles long. It starts up in a little lake called Lac Vieux des Airs on the Michigan and Wisconsin border in the northeastern part of the state. There it flows that over 430 miles southwest until it reaches Wyalusing State Park and enters the mighty Mississippi River near Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Throughout that journey, it drops in elevation by about 1,100 feet. That's roughly a fifth of a mile. And throughout that elevation drop, it's dammed up 26 times, making it one of the damnedest rivers of its kind. 21 of those dams are hydroelectric, and the very first hydroelectric dam was built on the Wisconsin River in 1909. It's actually right behind us in downtown Wisconsin Dells. That is the Kilbourne Hydroelectric Dam. That raised water levels up here by about 20 feet, and it currently powers about 65% of the Wisconsin Dells. So, that is the Wisconsin Dells. However, we're leaving behind us. We're going to see the true Dells of the Wisconsin River, and you have Jen and I to guide you through it. So sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, and welcome aboard.
Right-hand side at this cliff. It's a pretty high rock, stands about 65 feet tall, so because of its height, we do call it High Rock. So as we do pass by today, give it a big wave and say, High Rock. Now this cliff you're going to see off to our left-hand side is known as Romance Cliff. That one stands about 75 feet tall, and these two cliffs on both sides, they do mark the upper jaws to the lower Dells, and also the juncture of 4 Wisconsin counties, those being Sauk, Columbia, Juneau, and Adams County. So as we do pass through them today, you guys can all say you've been in 4 different places at once. Now our next rock formation and point of interest is going to be seen off to our right-hand side. Look for that pillar-like structure that sort of resembles a stack of pancakes. Once again, off to your right-hand side, that stack of pancakes is more commonly known as Chimney Rock. It was named after its resemblance to stick and motor chimneys used by pioneers in the olden days. And it's a great example of the differential erosion that you are going to find out here on the Wisconsin River, that being wind, water, and frost erosion. Now our next rock formation today is going to be seen all the way up in front of the bow of the boat. You're going to see those kayakers. It's going to be on that bare cliff right above them. You're going to look for Black Hawk's profile. So the most prominent feature of Black Hawk's face is going to be that large rock slab that protrudes from that cliff. That is going to represent Black Hawk's nose. The slit above that represents his eyes, and the slit below that, his mouth. Again, off to your right, Black Hawk's profile. You really do get creative. A lot of the trees and vegetation across the top sort of represent Black Hawk's headdress. Black Hawk was a native leader of the area of the Fox and Sauk tribes of the Wisconsin Territory, along with some area in Illinois as well. Now just a little bit about the unique type of rock you're going to see that lines the Wisconsin River today. It is known as Potsdam or Cambrian sandstone, and it is fairly rare. You can only find it in 4 different places in the entire world. Now the first and largest deposit of all this sandstone is of course found in Potsdam, Germany, where it gets its name. The second in Zurich, Switzerland. The third in upstate New York. And can anyone here guess the 4th location that has it? That is right, Ben. It is found in Baraboo, Wisconsin, right where Ben is from. Did anybody know that? No, I am totally kidding. It is found right here in Wisconsin Dells. Now, like I said, it is a very unique type of rock. It's very malleable and soft. So that's why you're going to see a lot of different types of vegetation and trees growing right out of that rock. The trees are able to sink the roots about 40 to 50 feet deep into that rock, and they absorb a lot of the water and nutrients that it naturally has instilled inside of it. Now, because of this, it does also absorb a lot of water, which gives off a microclimate cooling effect. So when you are between the banks of the Wisconsin River today, the temperature does drop about 10 to 15 degrees below what it typically is here in the town of the Dells. So as you're on the tour today, you guys can all say you're some of the coolest people here in Wisconsin. Of course, I can always say this, Ben cannot.
Now they're going to form what's known as Black Hawk's Island. Black Hawk's Island is right in front of us at this time, named after Black Hawk you just heard Jenna talk about. Now, Black Hawk's Island is actually the largest island on the entire Wisconsin River. It is over 210 acres, and along with that, it is said that every single tree species native to Wisconsin can be found right here on this island. Currently, it is owned by the University of Wisconsin Extension Program. It's very limited access unless you have special permission for a school group or 4-H club or maybe like a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop. Now, if you look right in front of us, you'll see a beautiful example of that Potsdam sandstone Jenna was talking about. This is one of my favorite parts of the tour. The exposed rock to our left kind of looks like a Butterfinger. You guys see it over there? Does not taste like a Butterfinger though, so I'd recommend being wary of that. Now, if you look in front of the boats, keep scanning the shoreline of Blackhawks Island, you see a large rock protruding from the side. By itself, that rock may not be very special. We do have a lot of rocks out here. If you look about 60 yards farther down the shoreline, you're going to see another one almost identical in size, shape, and vegetation. Now, due to their similarities, we actually call these the twin sister rock formations. This first one directly to our left, we call her Kate. Everybody say hi to Kate. Beautiful. Now, this second one up here on the left, we call her Duplicates. You understand? But if they were brothers, we'd probably call the first one Pete, the second one
George.
I said if they were brothers, we'd probably call the first one Pete and the second one. I said that if they were brothers, they kept telling me to repeat it down here, guys. I had to keep going. Jenna, for some reason, thinks we should call this second one to our left here Edith, but she is from Portage, so you got to cut her little slack. You cannot have your Kate and Edith too, correct? Right, yeah, that's just foolish. Now, if you look over on the right side, you're going to see a beautiful little inlet where the river likes to escape. That is known as Chapel Gorge. We actually did have a young man at this company. He's about 80 years old. He got married there about 40 years ago. It's actually a true story. However, he is no longer married to the same woman. So anytime you ask him, he says that his marriages, when they start on the rocks, they end on the rocks as well. You know, that's you got to take his word for it. He's a good testimony of that.
Now, as Ben mentioned, we are going around Blackhawks Island off to our left-hand side, and this channel that we are taking is called the Narrows. Now, before Wisconsin was known for beer, cheese, brats, and of course the Green Bay Packers, we were actually known for our lumber industry. People known as lumber raftsmen would cut up white pine trees in northern parts of the state. They'd build these very large rafts out of those trees, and then they would send them downriver to market and to sell to developing settlements along the way. Now, this was a fairly dangerous job, as a lot of those lumber raftsmen would lose their lives and their rafts navigating through portions of the river. Now, the most dangerous part of their entire voyage is actually going to be seen directly up in front of us today. And as you guys can see, it kind of looks like the river does come to a dead end or stop, but it finishes off on the left side of these cliffs, creating a 90-degree bend. Those lumber rafts would come from that left side, get the rafts trapped up in these swirling currents here, and then ram them into this right side shoreline, oftentimes losing their lives and their rafts in the process. Now, it does look a lot less dangerous than it did back then, as you're going to have to imagine the water level here about 20 feet shallower, and the currents here ran at about 35 miles per hour. So, due to the amount of lives lost here in this 90-degree bend, it did get the famous nickname, the Devil's Elbow. Now, this did lead to a new profession known as a standing river pilot, and a lot of locals around this area would come up to the tops of these cliffs and help navigate all those lumber raftsmen through the river. Now, the most famous of all of those men was a man named Leroy Gates. Now, Leroy Gates, he was the most famous, as he would come out here in a suit and tie and a really tall top hat and help navigate these lumber raftsmen through the river. Leroy actually left us our first ever billboard and what we like to call his business card, and today you're going to be able to see that coming to view to our left-hand side. So in this next inlet, you're going to look at that flat slab of rock that is now facing us. Go about 8 feet above the water, right below that darkest part in the rock. For that inscription, it's going to say Leroy Gates, Dells and River Pilot from 1849 to 58. It's behind that lowest hanging branch there. You're going to see off to our left-hand side, about 8 feet above the water. There's a little bit of an inscription, Leroy Gates, Dells and River Pilot from 1849 to 58. Did you guys kind of see that? It's pretty hard to see, so I will be pointing it back out to you guys as we're making our way upriver from the other side. However, Leroy Gates did lose his job back in 58 as that lumber industry switched over to the railroad. That was a lot more efficient way of transporting all that lumber throughout the state, and it was a lot easier and safer as well, as they would actually transport that lumber down to New Orleans. Now, after Leroy Gates did lose his job in 58, he set out to find a new occupation, and he actually invented and started out the first ever boat tours out here on the Wisconsin River. Have any of you guys ever heard of anything like that before? A boat tour on the river?
I have, Jenna.
Well, I'm glad somebody did. Of course, Leroy Gates' boat tours, they were a lot different than they are today. People would come out to his private dock, they'd give him 2 quarters in exchange for 2 oars, and then they themselves would paddle their way all the way up and down the river as he sat in the back of the boat drinking cold lemonade and telling them stories about the river. I do actually have oars located on the bottom deck, so if you guys don't laugh at my jokes, we might have to go back to those old-fashioned tours. No more? Yeah, there you go. I know the jokes in Wisconsin tend to be just a little bit cheesy. At least we're not in Iowa, then they'd be a little bit corny. Now off to our left-hand side, you're going to notice that that old river channel now joins us. That does mark the end of that 210-acre stretch known as Black Hawk's Island. Coming up to our right-hand side, you're going to start to notice these concrete docks. These concrete docks lead back to a cool cold water canyon that we use for our ghost boat. Now, if you were to come back on these tours about 100 years ago, they'd actually take people up this way through Coldwater Canyon. It was a part of the tour as it was a 3-stop. However, it did add an additional 1 hour onto the tour. And for some reason, I guess people didn't really like the 3-hour tour. I don't know why, though. You guys get that? A little bit of an older joke. Now coming up to our right-hand side, you're going to notice that big slab of rock leaning up against the cliffs. That is the Giant Shield. As of course, it does look like a giant shield. It's a natural high water marker here in the Dells, and back in 1958, the water reached its highest point at 4 feet over the very top of that rock. Now we do also have a lot of wildlife in the area. You guys saw a bald eagle today. We have white-tailed deer, minks, raccoons, birds, squirrels, chipmunks. There's about 37 different types of fish in the river. The largest of those being the lake sturgeon. Those grow up to be about 7 feet long and weigh in at a whopping 200 pounds. A lot of Native American tribes call these the Big Nahuna, which translates to the big ugly or stinky fish. So they remind me quite a bit of your pilot downstairs, Ben. But we also do have an alligator here on the river. You'll see that off to our left. Look for that long tree that's fallen down that's resting on the alligator's back. You're going to see the jaws hanging wide open of that alligator resting on that slab of rock. That big tree resting on her back. That is Allie the alligator. You guys believe me?
No, we don't.
He's in a good mood today. Well, she's what I like to call a crocodile, so it's kind of the same thing. A little bit. Now we do occasionally run into bears from time to time. You guys know how to get rid of bears here in Wisconsin? Yeah? No? Well, I'll tell you just so you guys know. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. Basically, to get rid of these bears, you stop at a Lowe's, a Home Depot, a Walmart, or something like that. Pick up a large gallon bucket of white acrylic outdoor paint and a 3-inch wide paintbrush. Take that stuff back to your house, paint a 3-inch wide goal line all the way around your property. They should be pretty safe from those bears here in Wisconsin, as they tend to have a pretty tough time crossing that goal line.
Just to your left, you're going to see what's known as Steamboat Rock. It's said to look like a pumpkin seed-shaped steamboat from above. Hot air balloonists actually named it in the early 1900s. Now this little channel we're in between Steamboat Rock on the left and the mainland on the right, we like to call this Lover's Lane. It is very quiet, private, romantic. Now we do have a tradition here on the Yellow Thunder. If you guys are sitting next to that special someone here in Lover's Lane, make sure to lean over, look them in the eye. I won't look. Give them a nice, big, juicy, crisp $20 bill. Anybody? If anybody's unwilling to accept the $20 bill, I'll happily come accept it. That's the true measure of love nowadays. Now, a lot of people saw those stairs on the right. A lot of people wonder where they go. There's another set up here. Jenna, do you know where these stairs go?
Up.
Nice. I actually heard they don't go anywhere. They stay right there all year long on that hillside. You know, I've never seen them move. They actually lead up to Chula Vista Resort, right behind you, over your right shoulder. You'll actually see it on our way back downriver as well. Now, Chula Vista is one of the more secluded resorts we have out here, but they still have plenty of amenities. They have nice rooms to stay in, fancy catering, zip lines, water parks, just about everything you need to have a good time here at the Dells. Now, they also have a beautiful view. If you guys look out in front of us, you will see that beautiful view. And they had that view thanks to a man named George Crandall. Believe it or not, this area used to look a lot like the downtown Wisconsin Dells you guys are used to. Small businesses, shops, hotels, the occasional swimming pool or resort. That was until about the 1920s and 30s. A little thing called the Great Depression came around. Anybody ever heard of the Great Depression? A couple of us, right? Now, a lot of them could not afford to keep their businesses open. They had just come here on a whim, trying to kind of make it big. And so they had to sell their businesses, and they did so to a man named George Crandall. He was actually the owner of a couple small hotels in town. He had been for a while. He was also involved in the railroads. So he had a good amount of wealth built up. And he bought all of their land for around $1 an acre. He bought around 1,900 acres of it, about 90% of this on the Upper Dells, and about 40% on the Lower Dells. Now, what he did with this land is he wanted to turn it into a state park. So he actually took down, burned down all those businesses and shops and stuff. He started planting all these trees you guys see. He planted thousands and thousands of trees. Now, before he could actually make it a state park, he did unfortunately pass away in 1938. And then his family took over the land for a period of time until 1954, when it was donated to the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. From there, they said they would protect it and it would not be developed on. And then they sold it to the state of Wisconsin in 1996. It is now known as a state natural area. It is actually more protected than the state parks we have here in Wisconsin. So you might have seen those beaches, a couple sand beaches. Those are public. You can go on those, as well as these waterways. However, anything past the cliff line and the vegetation line, you cannot go on. It is very protected, and that's how we keep it all preserved and looking the same, so we can see it in 100 years. I believe there is another bald eagle flying right over the tree line. Well, he's gone now. We always point out eagles, guys. We love them. There he is. He's back, putting on a show for us. Now, sit back, enjoy that eagle, enjoy what George Crandall gave us. We'll be at our first stop in about 7 minutes.
Now you're probably not alone in wondering, why does the river get so wide here? Now the answer to that is pretty complicated, kind of hard to understand, so I'm going to do my best to try to, explain it to you guys. But it's actually because the cliffs are farther apart, the banks. Of course I am kind of kidding, I mean that is technically true, but when the Kilbourne Dam was put back by our home docks, in 1909, it did raise the water level here in the Upper Dells approximately 20 feet, which covered up a lot of the little islands in this area and creating this large bay up in front of us today. Now the cliffs you're going to start to see off to our right-hand side are the tallest ones that you'll find here in Wisconsin Dells. These are the Sunset Cliffs. They stand about 95 feet tall. Now they do get this name because when the sun does set across the bay in the evenings, all those beautiful colors from that sunset reflect against the surface of the water and onto that rock. It's a pretty beautiful view to come out here in the evenings, so I do recommend it if you guys are ever out here. And the cliffs you're going to see on the opposite side of Sunset Cliff are known as Signal Point. Now, a lot of different Native American tribes, more specifically the Ho-Chunk or the Ho-Chunga tribes, they were said to go to the top of Signal Point, and then they would smoke signal to other parts of their tribe across the bay towards Stand Rock, our second stop, and that would initiate their ceremonies here in the evenings. So here you'll see Signal Point again up in front of us to the left, and Sunset Cliff off to your right. These two very large grand cliffs mark a pretty beautiful entrance to our first shore landing at the Witches Gulch. Now the Witches Gulch is the first of the two that we will be making on the tour today. It is the easiest as well. It's a flat 2-block in, 2-block out level boardwalk through a cool glacial meltwater canyon. Now, along the way, there are a lot of cool points of interest. I do encourage you guys to look for. Those can be marked off with signs with yellow writing. Now, all that's going to be pretty beautiful, but you'll see the most beautiful thing of all at the very end of that walk when you'll be met with concessions, restrooms, and the only designated smoking area on the tour today. This is the only spot that you'll be able to smoke today on the tour. We just ask that you refrain from doing so until you get to the very end by that stop sign and designated smoking area. Now, next to that designated smoking area, you are going to see that large red stop sign, which does ironically mean to stop. It does mark the end of the walk, and the turnaround point to come and head back to the boat on that same level boardwalk. So we do ask you do not pass by that stop sign. If you do, we probably won't see you. We might leave without you. Yep, we will leave without you. That's what Ben just said. And we won't feel bad about it. Maybe just a little bit. But then you're going to have to wait for that next tour boat with Captain Joe. So I think we're having a pretty good time. You guys are going to want to come back to this boat. When you do return back to the boat today, we do ask to take the same seats that you are seated in, as we feel this eliminates any bloodshed or fist fights over our beautiful lawn furniture on board today. Of course, if you're on the top deck, want to move down to the bottom deck, that's totally okay. We just ask that you wait till everyone returns back to the boat and is seated so that we don't have anybody taking anyone else's spots. So just try to return back to that same seat that you are seated in. Anything you do purchase at the concessions is more than welcome back here on the boat. Once again, we just do ask that you dispose of your garbage in the garbage cans that we have located at the back of the boat. Now, we're only going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes here back in the Witch's Gulch. Once again, about 15 to 20 minutes. So if you guys can please be back on the boat by around 10:50. Once again, 10:50. We'll be right on schedule to head on over to Stand Rock. As we are docking, please remain seated. Once the boat's all tied up, we'll give you a verbal signal when it's safe to stand up and come ashore. So once again, just remain seated. We'll let you know when it's safe to stand up and come ashore. So thanks again, and welcome to the Witch's Gulch. Shot from that video, but I'll try to give you a warning before he jumps across. Is everybody ready? Ready. All right. Okay, Katie. Who's come back? All right, let's give a hand for Rocky and his Everybody give Rocky a big wave.
Well, welcome back to Stand Rock, everybody. Did dog make the jump? That's always good. Murphy, he'll get there. We actually have 3 dogs up there every single year. You guys saw Rocky today. He's kind of our veteran. He's been here for a couple years. Up there we also have Knowledge. She's the only female dog. She does a pretty good job. She's a little lighter, a little smaller than all the rest of the guys, but she carries her weight. The other guy's name is Angus. He's new this year. Learning the ropes up there. Now, you guys look in front of the boat, see these high rocky cliffs. Now, scan your eyes off to the left. If you notice the waves in that position, you will see Holiday Shores Resorts. It's a campground. You can rent the pontoon there, get a jet ski, get a kayak, canoe, just about anything you want for a day on the river. And then you can camp there at night. Then you'll see civilization kind of starting to develop the rest of the way down. If you look all the way to the left, you can see it becomes very flat, very low, and you can actually see that bluff off in the distance. That is known as the Louise Bluff. He got it after the Mexican-American War, and then he actually went off and he fought in the Civil War. When he came back, he said he never wanted to be so far away from the Wisconsin Dells he could not see his beloved bluff. Louis actually got that wish to this day. He's buried at the base of that bluff, along with the first of his 2 wives and 2 out of his 14 children. It's also known as the head of the Dells. It starts a 12-mile geological stretch known as the Dells of the Wisconsin River. And there's not much to see past that. Like I said, pretty flat level lowland. So we're gonna turn around, head back downtown. Even if we wanted to go past that, we really couldn't. We'd be able to drive about halfway to that bluff before our boat would hit the bottom of the river. And then about a quarter mile past that bluff, there's a large sandbar goes all the way across. We can take you across the entire river, not even get your knees wet. So we're gonna turn around, head back downtown. This should only take 20 to 25 minutes. Now to help you pass some of that time, Jenna's gonna come around with the official guidebook of the Dells Boat Tours. Now, you do not have to pay to look at them. They're totally free if you want to scope it out. She'll be talking about some of her favorite things in the book later. She'll be around. Just let her know, raise her hand, give her a little wave if you want to look at a book. Like I said, they are free to look at, but they also are her own personal property. She didn't have to buy them. So make sure to take care of them. Don't use them as paper hats or throw them in the river or rip out any pages or anything like that. Once she passes those out and use any of those who got them and want to follow along, she'll tell you about some of her favorite pages in the book. You can flip through it with her, and then you will have the opportunity to buy it in a little bit. They're about $5, and when she comes back around and collect them, if you don't want it, that's totally fine. Just pass it right back. You won't hurt our feelings.
and in front of that you're going to see that large brown railroad bridge that was built up 3 different times. First time it was built out of wood, and sparks from the traveling transit railroad cars actually caused it to burn down. That second time they rebuilt it, they once again used wood, and sparks from those very same trains caused it to burn down a second time. Now the third time I think they got a little bit smarter, they decided to build that bridge out of steel. And as you folks can see, it is still there today. Still there. Still there. And that joke, it was still not funny, so I do appreciate the laughter on that today. Thank you guys so much. As we are nearing our home docks, I do want to personally thank you one more time for coming out here on the tour. A lot of people like to skip over the step, head straight to the water parks, the resorts, and stuff like that, so I am really glad you got to come out here and really see what initially makes the Dallas famous. If you enjoyed the tour today, that is fantastic. I do want you to remember a couple things. You're aboard the Yellow Thunder. Your captain's name was Ben, and your tour guide's name was Jenna. But if for some odd reason today you did not enjoy the tour, well, I'm very sorry to hear that, but in that case, you're aboard the Red Cloud, your captain's name was Murphy, and your tour guide's name was Gabby.
Her sister.
In all sincerity, I really hope you guys did enjoy the tour. Really fantastic group. This was my first day back on the Upper Dells this season, so you guys made it one to remember. Thanks for joining us. Just a reminder, remain seated as we're docking the boat. You guys are going to make your way up this staircase and through the ramps in that Tan Dells Boat Tour building. Of course, if you do need an elevator, let one of us know, and we will help direct you to that. So just remain seated. We'll let you know when it's safe to stand up and come ashore. Ben and I will both be at the back of the boat. If you guys have any last-minute questions, tips, or better jokes, we always love to hear those as well. So thanks again for riding with us. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your stay in Wisconsin Dells. Thanks again.